You all set, right?
I'm recording.
Ready? So Victor got Mr. Winslow already.
Yeah.
All right.
But was it recorded?
Everybody's ready?
Yeah.
You want me to get rid of this?
Nope. Doesn't matter.
Okay, I'm looking into it. I am Steve Ullman. I have the honor of serving as the president of the Antrim Historical Society. The society has started a project during which we will record the historical memories of some of the most prominent people who have lived in Antrim over the last 30 to 80 years. The person that I'm going to interview is the individual in town who has had the lengthiest and probably the most extensive experience in local government service. I could have interviewed Eric Tenney on his life in agriculture and on other aspects of his experience here in town, but we're going to limit this discussion to his participation in local government. I should say that on 3 occasions Eric has served as a member of our select board. He has been a sewer and water commissioner. Tell me when I start lying. He has been an employee of the Sewer and Water Commission. He also has been instrumental in organizing support for maintaining our middle school here in town, which was in some jeopardy. He has served on the town budget committee. And Mary McGrory, the famous Washington Post correspondent, used to use Eric in her columns as the archetype of the flinty, granite stater, wise individual dispensing wisdom on politics and government. So I have not asked you any of these questions in advance, so this will be a surprise. Tell us a little bit about your family history, the history of the Tenneys here in town.
Okay, they settled here in 1815 up on Old Town Road, the north side of Old Hill.
Okay.
The rock hole farm of the world. Okay. And they stayed there until the mid-1880s when they bought the Weber farm up on West Street. Finally got out of the rocks. Weber's was an improvement over where they were prior to that. Okay. That great grandfather died in 5 years. He died in 1820. His wife lived to almost 1870. So then he had his sons take that farm over, and finally John Frank Tenney is the one who decided to move. He became a selectman too. And which I didn't even know when I was a selectman. I knew my grandfather had it, but I didn't realize my great-great-grandfather had it.
So this is an endemic condition.
Okay. And that's one where my father and uncle were born in the early 1900s, up on West Street. That's the second Tenney farm. And then by coincidence alone, he ended up owning the Catawba Valley farm down in the Florida Valley along the river. In 1953, he bought it. We moved here in 1954.
So it is little known that actually you were not born here in Antrim.
I was born in Greenfield, Massachusetts.
And lived in Francistown for the first 10 years.
I lived in Greenfield. I was 4 years old and we moved up to Francistown from Mount Hermon.
Oh, from Mount Hermon, yeah. Tell us about your personal history, your education, any military service.
All right. I went to started school in Francistown through 90% of the 5th grade. Then we moved to Antrim in May of 1954. I finished 6 weeks of school in AES, which is now Great Brook School. And then 6th grade, and then we moved down to the old White Elephant on Main Street in those days.
Ah, yes.
I call it the White Elephant. It was Antrim High School at that point. And I was there until my sophomore year. And then my folks elected to send me back to Mount Herman, where I was born, believe it or not, for 2 years. And then, being smart, I applied to 2 different colleges, UNH and Cornell. Whichever one took me is where I went. And I decided to go to Cornell, not because it was Ivy League, it was just far enough away so I didn't have to come home every damn week. Okay, that's it. And basically, and then my father passed away, and my brother and I worked things out. I own the Tenney farm now.
Post-college, did you serve in the military?
And I was in the Navy for 3 years.
Okay, and the communists did not gain an inch?
During Vietnam.
During Vietnam. And then, did you work for GE or for, no?
I worked for Morse Chain, not Morse. Well, when I got out of college, I worked for a place in Ithaca until I got married. Okay. And I worked over here at what's now South Meadow School for 1.5 years. And that was, the hell of that.
It was Honeywell, wasn't it?
Yeah, Honeywell. And then they closed that place, and they offered me to get out of Mass, because they apparently thought I had some potential. And I said bye-bye, and that's when I took the farm over.
So what brought you back to Antrim? You'd seen a bit of the world, you'd been in Mount Herman, you'd spent 4 years in Cornell.
I wanted to be my own boss and run my own business. And my father he was still a dairy farm until 1973. Just before he passed away is when we sold out to milking herd. We had a few cows left after that, but we switched over to being a vegetable business.
Tell us about the first time you decided to run for the select board. What was it that prompted you to?
Okay. I didn't know anything about local politics until about 1975. 0. They tried to get me to run for selectman, and I had other things to do at home. Finally, the town got reassessed. First time, I think, in history by somebody other than the selectmen. And that's back when they were carrying land at $5 an acre. All of a sudden, everybody's owning huge tracts of land. Their taxes went through the roof because they got up to where they belonged even in those days. $5 an acre went out the door. Well, in the meantime, the state had passed this current use law. And I remember going to a meeting. I was the selectman, sat there, and the 3 selectmen refused to enforce the current use law. I'm not going to mention any names.
Okay.
All right.
Out of respect for the department.
And what I did is, I sat there and says, that's not right. They passed that law for a reason. And the reason was, a lot of people wanted to preserve land, but they got to pay for that somehow. So, and one of the selectmen happened to be a selectman, a county commissioner, and a state rep. Okay? And says, it seems to me like that might be just too much. So, and he actually came and asked me to run in 75. I said, no, I'm not ready yet. But after going to that meeting, which was the nastiest meeting I've ever seen in the Antrim Town Hall, they were being called 4-letter words. And I said, something's going to happen here. So I ran and won. And I spent the first year putting the town in current use. I did it. Nobody told me how. I called up the DRA, Department of Revenue, and learned how to do it, and went through and put the whole town in current use and qualified. And I think the reason they were against doing it, even though probably, I don't know whether that rep ever voted for it or against it, I never bothered to ask him, was the tax rate went up about $3 that year. Because there was a shift from land over to houses. Okay. And then in my first term, which is 76, 7, and 8, okay, I spent my life learning budgets. And the reason for that was we had some internal bickering going on in the selectmen's office, which I didn't know about until I got there, is the chairman wanted to fire the police chief. So I got involved with the police department. It was the last thing on my agenda, way down here somewhere. And it was old Clark Craig. Well, I made up my mind. I said, wait a minute, we're only spending $10,000 for police. What are you going to do? Hire another guy like Clark? He was doing fine, right? I was in terms of what we were spending. And he was soon to retire anyway, which he did. And I said, then we'll address the issue. Okay. And so that was issue one. And issue two was the bookkeeper quit. And the head selectman, because I voted to keep Craig on with the other guy, got PO'd. And he went to Florida in December, said, I'll see you at town meeting. So I said, do you think I'm going to sit there and look like a goddamn goofus at town meetings? I got to learn the budget and know how the hell to do these things. Because the other guy thought, who was a nice guy, and he did a very valuable one thing on that board. This was a completely different board than the board that was there when I had the meeting in '75. He thought we met too much. He lived in Massachusetts when he came up here, and he says, the politicians run too much down there. We meet once a month. And I said, what budget is this? So I grabbed the bull by the horns and learned how to do a municipal budget. We finally got a new secretary who was very good, Barbara Delia. I'm going to mention the good people.
Okay.
But I was on the phone again with the RA, learning how to do a municipal budget. And I went to town meeting that year, and I remember I had some bar graphs, which is the first time that ever happened in Antrim. What your tax rate would be for the budget, how much for the warrant items, and then add the school on top. Okay? And lo and behold, I came out within 10 cents of what the tax rate was. So that gave me credibility, but I knew what the hell I was doing. And the rest of that term was dealing with the damn municipal sewerage that came in, which was not a big deal. They had a study committee that actually did things. And I had it all set up, but the selectmen had to get involved.
Now, how long was your first period? Is it
3 years.
Just 3. Why did you choose to stand down after 3
Because I
years?
had things to do at home. I just couldn't go up there all the time and run. I used to run it on the telephone with Barbara. I said, Barbara, you got a problem, give me a buzz. Okay? I had things to do down on the farm. I just couldn't live up in the selectman's office, for God's sakes. They didn't pay that much those days. I think we got $300 a year or something like that.
Let's go ahead to the second time you decided to run. What motivated you?
Well,
And what time period was that?
99 through 2002. Yeah. Well, I was actually working in the water and sewer, and I got out. I wasn't commissioner anymore. I was 15 years a commissioner in that. And I was trying to retire from politics. There was never much politics in the water and sewer. And all of a sudden, my wife said, you got a phone call from somebody. And so I said, all right, I know where he lives. He saw me go across with Brian Brown.
Okay.
And he asked me, would you run a write-in campaign? This is a week before town meeting.
Was there already a candidate on the ballot?
Yeah.
Okay.
But it was one of the selectmen that was running again. Then he explained why he wanted it done.
Was Brian the police chief at the time?
And that board was for some reason going after him. And it was BS, as it turned out.
Mm-hmm.
So I said, okay, I'll run it. You can run my campaign. You haven't got to do anything except accept it. We'll win it for you, Eric. And I said, okay, I'll do it. And I got in there. And they weren't bad people. And I ran. I don't like 450.
On a write-in basis.
On a write-in in 1 week.
Do you have any idea how Brian structured this campaign? Did he?
I don't know. I had nothing to do with it. He's the one that did it all. He went to the telephones and everything, automatic this and that. I said, all right, if I win, I win. If I don't, I don't. Well, I won big time. And at that point, I had my own beef with them. It had nothing to do with that. I thought we'd had a good deal with Jim Rhines and Shule and all that, and they don't want to take that away from Rhines and blah, blah, blah. Well, as it turns out, they wanted a new police chief.
Mm-hmm.
And then all of a sudden, they had this big, fat stumbling block sitting on the table, me. And they couldn't figure out how to get around that one. And I didn't think, I thought Brian was doing a very credible job. As it turns out, the Attorney General, they turned it over to the Attorney General to investigate for stupid cash payments on gun registrations. He wasn't doing anything wrong. And the Attorney General vindicated it.
Yeah.
But they also, in the meantime, they found out they'd had meetings, they hadn't invited me.
Which is
they're trying to get rid of the stone statue in the middle of the table.
Yeah, not inviting you would be a violation of the sunshine.
And they accused me of being his buddy or something. Which is BS. Brian and I were just like you. My relationship with Rick and Bill. I know them, we'd visit, and that was it. You know. Well, we got over that hurdle. Then I bailed again. But meantime, I filled in once or twice as a selectman for a month or two. So I actually did 3 terms and filled out a couple of vacancies.
Now, your decision to stop in 2002, what prompted that?
I honestly think that you shouldn't try to dominate the damn place.
Uh-huh.
You know, you get different people to come in and run. And I've often felt that if you live in a small town, you should be involved.
This should be your epitaph. I think you've conveyed that to me pretty strongly over the years, the notion about your obligation to participate if you live in a small town.
If you live in a small town, you don't have to be a politician. You just do something. If it's a historic society, active member of your church, park and rec board, it could be anything. You live in a small town, go into the town and participate. All right, I had a talent, apparently, for being a selectman, so I did it 3 times. But that's it, one term. I was not going to try to dominate the place.
Let's take you ahead to your 3rd term. And
well, that was all because of the
what prompted that?
The bogus, I know, late October 2009, the town of Antrim, I think they had $30,000 in the bank. Okay, and the school, they hadn't paid the school, and things were tight. And I said, it can't be that bad.
I should just interrupt you by saying that in the newspapers, there were headlines about the town of Antrim being $1.8 million in the red.
Well, that one paper went up to $3.8 million, which was BS. They didn't know what the hell they were talking about. I even called them up and said, why don't you talk to town Hillsborough? If you don't believe anything the Antrim people are telling you, why don't you call up the Hillsborough and find out if Antrim BS is you or not? Okay? It was like $1 million. And it wasn't like we were in the hole that far. We had plenty of accounts receivable. For some reason, the selectmen had decided not to claim money for the couple of bridge projects because they were negotiating with somebody over $10,000.
Would this be state grants?
Yes.
They
weren't pursuing it because they thought they could get the state to pay part of the $10,000 agreement for this stupid bridge problem.
But the state grants were in the hundreds of thousands of dollars. Yeah.
We actually had in the receivables of about $700,000 or $800,000 from the state of New Hampshire. They hadn't claimed. That's why we're in the hole. Okay. Well, it was going to take time to get that. So what we did is I figured it out on my own because I didn't need to call the state. I said, it's simple. You can't have your tax rate go down next year, even though you're not going to cut your warrant items and everything. So we wrote a warrant item for ourselves to the town of Antrim for $450,000, which kept your tax rate up, and you claim, and the town claimed the money. That's all you had to
A
do.
one time only.
One time only. And I remember going to a hearing and candidates night, Galen explained that, and I got up and explained why it had to happen.
So the Galen Stearns, the former town.
Well, he had just come too. And I remember I walked in the office, there was only one way out of this, Galen. This was before I was a selectman, but I didn't have any opposition, so I could sort of do what I wanted. I said, you just gotta write a warrant item to yourself to keep the tax rate up. It's an expense. And he says, the state told me that too. I said, okay, I guess I got some credibility then. But within 9 months, we went from in the hole to $800,000 surplus.
That was a miracle.
No, Galen did this on his own. Even before I got there, he'd applied to the state for $500,000 that they were sitting on, and the state knew they owed it to us. That wasn't the problem. The problem is nobody claimed it.
Without naming names, who was responsible for the misunderstanding?
About what?
About the financial situation of Antrim in 2009, 2010.
Well, the problem was they had a big turnover. The business administrator bailed.
Okay.
That was there prior to that, Neil Cash. He was a nice guy. He knew it.
And an Antrim
And he
mayor.
wasn't sweating. I talked to Neil, because he came to the stand once in a while. And we said, we'll work our way out of this. But then because they were paying their bills late, and the word was getting out, and with this thing with the school district, so they gotta get this straightened out. And so that's why I ran that. And it didn't take long. They just had to do it.
Tell us about the Great Brook School potential closure and how you organized the
Well, I was behind the scenes on that one.
Yeah, but you were an important behind-the-scenes participant.
I would just wrote articles in the Limerick and whatever, and got everybody to join in to make sure they vote on it. And I hope this takes a little bit of history
Well, this is
before this will ever come out, because I don't want another town to know what we did. The town that made the biggest boo-boo in the Conval School District, believe it or not, is Peterborough.
not Peterborough.
Peterborough. And what happened is, when they went to the fiscal year on their town budgets, everybody forgot about voting on the school budget in March. So they have very little, they get like 10%, they're lucky. They got like 4,000 voters. What do we got? 1,800. And we can get 400 normally, and they're lucky if they can get 400. So and it takes a 2/3 vote to change that damn Articles of Agreement, so we could stop them cold.
So under the Articles of Agreement, Antrim was due a middle school, yes?
Well, sure.
Yeah.
You know why? It was simple. When they formed Conval, Antrim had 2 school buildings. All right, we'll have the northern part of the district go middle school up in Antrim. Didn't have to build a building for that. And the idea was when they I talked to a bunch of guys who were on the Articles of Agreement originally, were still alive. One of which is my father, but I didn't think to ask him, I wasn't interested at that point. But they just tried to sort of keep things the way they were as much as they could, and keep their budgets more or less the same as they were, knowing things would change, but to start with. And Antrim had 2 buildings, simple. And that's why you ended up with a Great Brook School up here.
So it really was the effort to make sure Antrim turnout was very high, a very high percentage
Well,
of
the
the
thing is, the
eligible
only
voters.
person that could knock us down is Peterborough.
And they had extreme.
They actually voted in favor of keeping it.
Yeah, there were.
So they were both ways. It worked in our advantage. Now, the 3 towns that wanted it was
Dublin, Sharon, and
Temple.
Temple.
And I'll tell you a story about Temple.
Okay. It's got to do with Gail Cromwell?
Well, it was more than that.
Okay.
I'll tell you another one that tells you all you need to know about Temple. back after my first term as a selectman, I was the agent that went to the SAG meetings, Selectmen's Advisory Group. And they formed a committee to see if we could change the school funding formula from 75 to 25. 75 head count, 25 assessment. To go all the way, the ideal thing would have been value assessment. But we couldn't get that. So, believe it or not, Gordon Allen put a warrant item in. He was a school board rep in those days, back in the early 80s, to go that way. And Peterborough even voted to do it in those days, but it didn't fly. So we ended up settling for 50-50, okay, which helped Antrim to move.
Yeah.
Temple was a town that had helped, but I remember prior to Gordon doing that, we had this committee that met and tried to review the formula. Well, there was a gentleman from Temple that was a retired college professor, Stephen.
Well, you know, they are very bright people.
Yeah, they were. Well, I remember coming home with Charlie Lindsay. You remember Charlie? Mm-hmm. He was on it from Bennington. He and I used to ride over together. And this guy said, you know, democracy is democracy. We had a bump agreement with Wilton, we're getting screwed. But that's the way it is because we voted to do it. And in Temple those days was on our, should have been on our side. They weren't as wealthy then.
Yeah, I was going to say.
And he said, we better leave this alone. And I remember Charlie on the way home said, how can you argue with a guy that enjoys getting screwed?
I'm going to write that down.
He actually used a different word. But the reason that we didn't close Greybook was Peterborough. So if they had come out in mass and voted to close it, it would have gone.
Even with the 2/3 margin.
No, they're so big.
Yeah.
And the reason they never, originally the reason they supported everything was Peterborough used to be, you know, under the old formula, it didn't make any difference. Peterborough was 40% of the kids and 40% of the district's value. You can tinker with that all you want. The percentages were the same, either side. So whatever you did, they were going to come out the same. Okay. Now Peterborough dropped a little bit. So they got a bunch over there that think we still should be doing it. But they're more after the elementary schools now than they are the middle schools. This
is an accomplishment I wasn't aware of, that you, the old formula, 75% enrollment, 25% property value, really discriminated against the poorer towns within Conville, like Antrim and Bennington, and you helped to rejigger the.
I'll tell you how it worked. I remember it was the building projects for the elementary schools back in 1990, give or take a year or two. We went. And they got the high school done, they got the middle schools done. Now we're going to do the elementary schools. And we voted to kill the bond issue. And the school board was, what the hell did we do wrong on this one? And finally, enough of us got together and told it, you just endorsed changing the formula. It'll pass. So they endorsed changing the formula to 50-50. That's the best you're going to get, okay? And all the no votes stayed home, the passed like
no problem.
Piece of cake.
As you think back over your experience in local government, did you have mentors? Did you have people in local government that you really admired?
To be honest with you, I never paid that much attention to it, just like most folks growing up or whatever.
Yeah.
The only thing I can remember, I put this in a limerick article once. They used to have all the town meetings at town hall. You voted. I remember the moderator. Do you remember the moderator standing up on the stage? It might have been before your time.
Can you hold it right there?
Sure.
I need to change battery. What were we talking?
How many minutes are we at?
I don't know.
About 40 minutes.
Yeah. We've done 40 minutes?
Yeah.
Another 20 minutes?
What,
Do you remember how they used to do it?
at town hall?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Or,
Yeah, back in the 50s and early 60s.
The moderator stood on the stage.
And you voted there.
And this is when there were basketball hoops up there. Yeah,
I don't know.
because I can remember.
The oldest. All right.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Okay.
Well, the old town meeting back, I can't remember what they, see, I was gone for about 10 years.
Yeah.
From college and the Navy and whatever, and a lot changed, including the public feature Craig Lake, that's when that was done. But back before they started meeting up at the gym, they used to do it in the town hall. And they had their business meeting going on, and you voted all the way through the business meeting. They even adjourned the business meeting, they were all first day of church and had lunch, the whole meeting, then they went back to the town hall and finished business. That's how they did it in those days.
This was during the day?
Yeah.
So they, oh, wow.
But remember, I wasn't involved in any of this. I remember, but one thing I do remember, coming back from school one day, I stopped in and stood up in the back. And I was a kid. I don't remember how old I was. Before I went to Mount Herman, and I was, I was 15. So I was younger than 15. And I'll never forget, I'm going to mention the name, Harvey Black got up and asked the question, how come you spent so much money on pencils last year? And that's stuck in my mind forever. And I remember when I ran in 76, well, for Christ, we graduated from that status. But that's how minute they used to get into a selectman's budget in those days. Okay?
What did you like about being a selectman?
I thought I was helping the town. That's it. It's the only reason you should run.
Okay, there are no particular duties. You seem to have an interest in budget.
I honestly believe you should participate for the good of the town. That's all I can say to that one. I'm not doing it for my own ego. As I told you, the last 2 times I ran were under duress.
Okay. Thinking back at really tough decisions you had to make, what was the toughest decision that you had to make as a select board member?
I honestly can't think of any that were super tough. Maybe it's because I had credibility. People were, well, we gotta do it. I can't remember one that was super, had to be a leader of it or something, at least unwittingly.
I can think of a very controversial issue that you and your wife disagreed about. That must have been, and that has to do with wind power.
Okay, we never even talked about that at home.
I'm not including Mrs. Tenney in this at all.
My only interest in that was, I was probably, and I've explained this to Bob Edwards and a couple other people who were sort of against it. I said, my goal in that, I was neutral. I didn't care whether the damn wind turbines came or not. What I was interested in is making sure the village of Antrim, or the township, got some money out of it. Because they were promoting to do it by tax rates versus the pilot. And I worked all the numbers, and with the equalized value, our percentage would go up in Conville, that thing. And I thought most of the money was going to go to Conville because of the formulas. Okay? And that's why we originally came up with an alternative to the pilot, and apparently the state had to change the pilot law and everything else. But I was just in it to make sure that the town of Antrim, not the damn Conville School District, got something out of it. Once they changed the pilot law, it solved the problem as far as I'm concerned. Now, as far as the physical presence of the wind turbines up there, I told a couple of people, here are the lessons I learned in the Navy. I was at gun director's school down in Van Neck, Virginia. And a carrier the size of mine, I was on, which is a World War II vintage, was commissioned a year after I was born. And a newer one sailed out of Norfolk at the same time. They were out there like 5 to 10 miles on the Avenue. And I remember looking at them, I said, you can't tell one from the other until you put a high-powered magnifying glass on, and then you can figure it out. And I said, these people keep yakking about, oh, there's 300, 400, the only way they're going to know is to put a 300 footer next to a 500 footer, right next to each other. Then you say, hey, that one's taller than this. I didn't care. Now, the voters said that we still had a majority of voters in those days. I said, okay, let's have it.
Is the root of the wind power project, the root of that problem, the failure of the Department of Revenue assessment, that nobody in Antrim believes that he can get a reliable estimate of the property value of the Antrim wind project?
Well, it's a utility, and they're assessed a different way than everything else is. Public service included, because it's a utility. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
Now, we hired this guy, I can't remember his name even, from up Littleton, New Hampshire, that does utility assessment. And he was winning cases left and right against public service companies. This is public service on wind power. And because he says the reason nobody can beat them is they haven't been able to have any market value on it. And they replace everything constantly replacing stuff. He says they're not worth less than they used to be. All of a sudden, one year, and they were going to appeal it, and he had a meeting with them, and they left it alone. But our tax revenue went up almost $140,000 from public service.
Mm-hmm.
Now, your tax revenue went up. That doesn't talk about the fact probably your rates went up too that year to pay for that. Okay, but he did that for a lot of towns, not just Antrim.
What aspect of being a selectman surprised you?
The whole job until I learned it. Really, I didn't know what it was. I really didn't.
How long did it take you to get more confident?
Well, in a year or two once I figured it out. But it took me a little time. I didn't know anything about it when I went in. I told you that.
Mm-hmm.
The only reason I went in is because I thought the large landowners, like certain people, didn't have the money for the assessments they go get screwed with. Because my basic theory is with taxation is people cause the need for taxes, not 500 acres of timber.
Okay.
Why tag them to support this? And Dick Shack, I'm going to use his name, he and I he disagreed with me. So we used to disagree at the selectmen's meeting, but he and I had a good relationship. After we got through debating that, we went over to Maplehurst and had a drink.
I am surprised. Is there anything you wish someone had told you about being involved in local government before you got involved?
No. I never asked, and nobody ever mentioned it to me, to be honest with you. You sort of had to figure it out yourself.
What qualifications should a person have to serve in local government? On a Parks and Recreation Board, for instance, or a library trustee?
The big thing is, in any of these boards, is just don't think you can go sit and go once a month to a meeting and sit there and nod your head. You got to learn the job and be willing to put some extra time in. Now, obviously, the job take less time for that than other jobs. And the selectmen probably have to put planning board members too, probably have to put as much time in as anybody. But you got to be willing to donate some time, other than just sitting at a meeting once a month.
How informed and concerned are Antrim residents about local government?
It's issue by issue. Most 90% of the issues they could care less about. There's probably 10% occasionally they get uptight about. I mean, they're trusting the selectmen to do the job, and the police, the roads, and whatever. That's what it costs. One thing about public works, if you postpone it, which you can always do, it's pay me now, pay me later. And it's going to cost more later than it is now.
Does it concern you that in recent elections, a lot of the positions have been uncontested?
No,
Okay.
that's the way it's always been, actually, believe it or not. Once in a while, you get more than one person running for office, but I wrote an article on that. It's too bad. I said, you owe something to a small town. Now, you don't have to do it as a political office. Okay. Now, we could get, I remember it was hard, it's hard to get the people to put name on a ballot. That's why, in some respects, your committees are better if you appoint them. People, a lot, that opens up the spectrum a little more. Some people just won't put their name in public, you know, on a ballot. Either that, they got an ego problem, afraid to lose, or whatever the reason is. But you can get them to serve if you appoint them.
I am done with my questions, but I would like to say, speaking for generations of Antrim residents, I'd like to express my appreciation for you for your service over the years, because it's been really invaluable.
Well,
The budgetary expertise you've developed and your other contributions,
well, that's
so critical.
what I told you earlier tonight was I did it out of desperation.
Well, maybe that's a good motivation. I got nothing else.
Now, I have a question for you, just because I'm curious listening to this.
Sure.
If there was a position in Antrim politics, which was the budget master, and that's the only thing that you had to do, would that be a position that you would be interested in, where you didn't have to deal with all the selectmen bullshit and just had, just worked on the budget?
Well, I'll tell you what. I wanted to get off the budget committee, which is an advisory committee, but no, I'm not. But I wanted to get off this year. Donna told me, I don't want you off that. I said, why? I can talk to you and I get in trouble. Because at least I'm not, so I'm the, as far as her mind, I'm probably the de facto master, But it's not the the other thing people don't really get is, your budget, sometimes your budget goes up and down. It really does. Because, if you got people who retire and the benefits goes down, because you're hiring somebody cheaper, It's the line items. They're important because you're setting yourself up usually for long-term costs. And that's why they're important. And they'll influence your budget for years later on. For example, when we put up the library, I foot dragged on it, mainly because we had another bond, the old Bennington dump was the third year was going to be paid off. I said, okay, you can do the library for the same price, so it didn't influence the tax rate. And that's why we stalled on that. But when you get done with it, that's called management.
I have a request from you, Eric. You spoke a little bit about the learning curve of being a selectman.
Yeah.
And it took a year and a half to 2 for you. You may be the exception, because I've been to town meetings, I've been to selectman board meetings, and could you speak to the people in the future who might consider being a selectman, but just to see the knowledge that comes out of these meetings that they just don't feel like they're up to it? Do you need a particular passion for a subject, or can you be a generalist in that role and do it in a 3-year term?
Well, there's really, when it comes to budgets and warrant, there's really only about 3 numbers you need to keep track of. I remember the last year as a selectman, I walked in to see Gail. What's your tan? You had to borrow a tax anticipation note? No, we didn't have to do that until May 15th. Well, the first year I was a selectman, we paid off the year before on January 15th. Started borrowing again on January 16th. Okay, when you got semi-annual taxes, Gail paid that one off on June 15th. And then he had to borrow again late November, which he paid off on December 15th. And then finally the third year, we didn't have to borrow this year. We had enough money in surplus.
Yeah.
Okay. That's question one. But to me, probably the most important question number you got to keep is what the town's value is when you're figuring your tax rate. Now, if you're 200 million, that means take off the last 3 zeros. Every time you spend $200,000, it's $1 on your tax rate. Okay? And that's probably the most important number. Now, there is a little chicanery that goes on, and I did it, and everybody does it. And it's perfectly legal, and it's what selectmen should do.
I was going to ask you, should we stop the tape right now?
Does anybody have a Bible?
No. How do you generate surplus? Underexpended expenses are taking more revenue than you anticipated. Okay? Remember, your tax rate's set in October, but you still got 2 months of the year that you don't know what you're going to. You got an idea what you're going to get, but you don't until you close your books on December 31st. And I remember the lesson number one is, if you remember 25, 30 years ago, New York City went bankrupt. And then they got a bunch of people and they worked it out. Why did they go bankrupt? Because they were they were overstating their revenue. See, nobody pays attention to revenue. Everybody worries about expenses. Yeah. Revenue is exactly as important as expenses. Because if your revenue drops, your tax rate's going up. If your revenue goes up, your tax rate might come down. So what you do, based on the New York City experience I remember reading about, is you underestimate your revenue. So you automatically generate some surplus there. Now you don't know how much on the expense side. If you've got some integrity in the numbers you put in. As I said, if a guy retires, you might this and that. You know, all right, the benefits thing may go down $5,000, or it might go up. And then you get somebody new that's older and gets better benefits, whatever. So you try to pay attention to your expenses, but really the big kicker on surplus is underestimating your revenues.
And that is
the worst thing you can do is to overestimate it intentionally. Because sooner or later it's going to come right back and bite you. That's what happened in New York.
And I think that's what you described as the responsible way to the budget. I always, when I was a school board member, always wanted to have a fund balance, maybe 5% of the overall operating budget.
The attitude of the states changed dramatically. I remember the year I filled in, it was 2 years after I got out the first time. I did the town balance sheet at the end of the year. I had $100,000 in surplus. Christ, they came over here. They sent a guy over to Antrim.
This would be the DRA?
Yeah. And in those days, they wouldn't let you have a surplus.
Oh boy.
We're overtaxing everybody.
So if the town hall roof blows off.
Huh?
So if the town hall roof blows off.
You're screwed.
Yeah.
Unless you got insurance. Now they recommend a certain percentage of your budget for surplus. Now, what happens if it grows too much? You give it back to the taxpayers. Automatically. Okay? And so you keep it level, but you won't know that number until the end of the year. Even though you got a feel for what it's going to be, you don't know until December 31st. Then you know. It takes a month or two to figure it out. But you know, every year they give it. You say, how come we can do this? And the tax rate didn't change. Well, the purpose is they probably they might have taken $300,000 or $400,000 out of surplus down. The thing is, you did pay for it, but you used the bookkeeping magic to do it.
I think it's always defensible to do that. I think it's appropriate.
No, the worst thing you could do is make it go to zero. And that's what they used to do. A lot of towns were scrapped. Now, a town can't overspend the bottom line. You got to call a DRA on expenses and ask for permission if there's a reason. Now, you got to be not on revenue, but on the expense side. If you blow your bottom line, you got to have a damn good reason to get DRA's approval.
Other questions? Thank you, Eric.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I'll tell you one thing about the farm. Thank God the Paducah River flows through it in a year like this.
Think about how fertile your soil is.